and Mark Moss said, really kind of defiantly, that's what we should be doing at the Folk Alliance conference. And there became this atmosphere of, we should just take back the Folk Alliance from the singer-songwriters.
Yeah, well,
where do you stand amidst this great quandary of which way is it tilting? Toward commercialism, professionalism, singer-songwriters, professional performers, or away from grassroots people who make music as part of their lives and maybe also can go out and present it to other people a little bit with some skill?
Yeah, I guess I fall on the side of the traditionalist, and I really do think that the folk scene is too much dominated by singer-songwriters. It's like, everybody and their brother or sister becomes a singer-songwriter. I mean, a lot of these people, I feel like saying, why don't you just keep a journal or something? You don't have to go out and do this on stage. If you want to talk about your life, then, keep a diary or something. But, don't make CDs. But I think, too, a lot of that is just the nature of the two different types of artists. Traditional artists are not very good self-promoters, because a lot of times they're not even professional musicians.
Right.
And I think I mentioned earlier, we do probably more singer-songwriters than I would like, because they are very aggressive.
Yeah.
They're organized. They're pushing themselves, and I should say no more often than I do.
They've got agents, for God's
That's
sakes.
right. They've got agents. They've got their own magazine.
Yeah.
Now the performing songwriter thing, and I wish there were more emphasis on traditional music, but I guess maybe it's just all a reflection of the interest of the audience. Maybe the people out there that come to shows are just more interested in hearing singer-songwriters. I mean, certainly the artists who have been able to, climb up to some, fairly good degree of commercial success. People like John Gorka and that, they're singer-songwriters.
Right.
And, I can't think of anybody much doing traditional music that's making the kind of money, that people like Gorka or Patty Larkin, people like that. I mean, that played several thousand in an auditorium. It seems like the place you'll hear the traditional artists is festivals, and that, again, that's probably because of the way they're leading their lives. They can't get out on the road and tour year-round,
Right.
but they can do, a few festivals a year, take a long weekend or something away from their day job or whatever, or if they're older folks, maybe they just don't have the stamina to tour relentlessly like these young whippersnapper singer-songwriters are able to do. I think there's been a little bit of a diluting of the quality of the singer-songwriter scene too. Now, back 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I was of the opinion that the quality was very high, among singer-songwriters that were out there earning a living at it. But I think there's just so many now. It's been kind of diluted, and I think that there's lots of mediocrity out there. People that they probably wrote poetry in high school, and now they've decided they want to take it on the road, so they put a melody to it, and you can always find somebody willing to say you're wonderful for promotional materials.
Right.
It can be quite shocking, if you read the promotional materials first, and wow, the next Dylan or whatever the catchphrase is, and then you put the CD on, and it's you get one ear and out the other. So yeah, I wish there were more emphasis on it, but I don't know how to bring it about. I'll leave that to Mark Moss's if it
Now,
wish you luck.
What type of traditional performers does Fiddle and Bow present? And where I'm going, I'm wondering if do you do recording artists or local folks who
we do some local
get
stuff.
wind of?
Yeah, we've done over the years. We haven't done anything like this too recently, but we presented a series one year of heritage artists. The State Arts Council of North Carolina each year, just like it's done nationally, they recognize certain folk artists for their contribution.
Okay.
And one year we put together a series of, I think we got a grant to do it too. Put together maybe 4, 6 shows. People like Etta Baker, who's people like that. Frank Prophet Jr., who the son of.
I didn't know there was a junior, yeah.
Yeah, right. People like that. It was sadly pretty poorly attended. And when we presented Etta Baker, we really pushed. There's a really good local, black newspaper, and they gave us good support on that. But no blacks came to hear Etta Baker. I mean, the folk scene still is very white. I don't know that anybody even likes to talk about that. That's probably a whole other, several hours worth of discussion.
Well, I was going to ask you about that too.
And I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah.
Other than, and here I really kind of have to be careful what I say, because I don't want to offend anybody. But I think folk music has always been the domain of educated, certain type of people. The people that came through the 60s and their children now. And except in rare exceptions, artists like Odetta and a few over the years, Joshua, of that era, and then some new artists. I guess there's maybe just something about the nature of that music that doesn't appeal particularly to African Americans in general, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's not what rings their bell musically. Maybe it's a little heady. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, it's too heady for a lot of my friends. They don't want to sit and listen to an evening of a series, even a very good songwriter. That's just not their idea of entertainment. They'd rather go to a bar with a headbanging rock and roll band in the background and do a little dancing and visit with their friends, and so that's pretty true too of the white audiences, and I think that's why folk music audience stays small, is because it demands a lot of attention.
Right.
I think you just don't go to a folk concert and chat through it like you might other types of music. But I don't know. I'm really not sure why there's been that limited African American involvement in it. I guess if I were African American and I looked at this organization and the folk music scene, I would think, well, there's not a lot there for me.
Right.
There's some terrific artists, people like Vance Gilbert, who are just incredible performers and entertainers, but it's a very, very small number, proportionally. And I don't know what can be done about that, because I'm not even quite sure why that's the case.
Well, there's people playing their own music though, and they're just not calling it folk music. I mean, now we're having this conference, the Campbell Brothers. I know they were in Memphis. I wasn't there, but they played last night at this concert up the street. They do the steel guitar gospel music. It's really innovative sound. And they're here because people are bringing them here. I don't think they go home and say we're playing folk music.
No, they wouldn't. It must be similar to what happened back in the 60s when all of these old blues guys were gone, these Yankees from New England.
Pulling up the blues.
Went down to Mississippi and whatever and found these guys working on farms again and brought them back out on the road as performers. So I guess it's still a little like that.
Right. What's your own aesthetic? What do you like? If you had your druthers and could put into fiddle and bow, not worrying about bringing in paying customers, what would you have perform for you?
Well, I love Celtic music a lot, English music too. I love traditional stuff. I like a good number of songwriters too, the really good ones. I think there are some exceptional ones out there. I guess I'd kind of do. That's kind of what I do now. Being the person that does the bookings, it's kind of do what I want.
Oh, okay. I would assume you'd have to have some dollars and cents considered.
Well, yeah, definitely.
You have to think about who's going to fill the seats.
Right.
You can't do those heritage acts all the time.
No.
But I guess if you were freed of those constraints, that's what I'm doing. What would you?
Well, it'd be nice to bring in, some of the bigger name artists, the people that have been around for a long time that we've never been able to do, like say Tom Paxton or Tom Rush. Big Tom Rush fan. I'd love to, get people like that for a show. Yeah, I'd like to do more international music. I like that a good bit, like Eastern European folk music and Breton, French music. I love that.
And do you have to
Got
reach out to
do that.
agencies and touring acts to get that kind of stuff? You don't see it locally much, do you?
Oh, no. No, there's basically nothing happening locally except
Okay.
what we do. We're pretty much the only act in town when it comes to,
Okay.
professional level
Okay,
acoustic
so you've
music.
got to get people who are on tour, essentially.
Yeah, right.
People who
Now
have
there
got
is
a professional gig going and are moving,
Yeah, there's a performing arts center in town, and they do a series they call, what, For the People or something, and it's a mixture of comedy and stuff. But, when they decide to book a folk act, it's the Kingston Trio. I wouldn't even go.
Yeah.
They don't. It'd be nice.
Oh, is that an actual thing? That's what they did?
They did, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
they played there, but now they do a little better. Like Cherish the Ladies were going to be there. I think actually this weekend or something. But that's their idea of, still of a folk show would be the Kingston Trio.
Right.
And I loved them back then, but now, I just don't think I could connect with what they're doing. Kind of been there, done that kind of attitude, I guess. But
Does Winston-Salem have any kind of vernacular music scene going on that where the participants don't even call it folk? People get together and play in bars or something. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I've been listening to tapes of some of the past conferences as part of what I'm doing here, just to get a flavor of what was going on. And I was listening to some tapes of the Boston conference, even though I was there. Wasn't thinking about this back then. And I listened to a show called a panel called, Why is Folk Music Thriving in New England? And people talked about building up, good networks in your community for your coffee house, or the types of things you do with keeping mailing lists and working with radio DJs.
right.
And then there was a totally separate panel which talked about all these fiddlers that played just an hour's drive out of Boston at things like the French American Club, which is just an ethnic gathering place on a Saturday night. And nobody would ever dream outside of the presence of the Folk Alliance conference
Right.
of bringing these people to your coffee house. There was a real scene going on there in which the people had no concept that anyone would think they're folk musicians. It was, and it was an on the ground, actual, uncontrived scene with local musicians
Yeah.
playing there. Is there anything that goes on like that? Or?
Yeah, in our part of the country, of course, old-time string band music and bluegrass is really big, and there are lots of just jam sessions.
Okay.
Weekend and weeknight things where people just gather at a community center or something like that and just jam.
So a steady diet of presenting that for a ticket price wouldn't draw people.
Well,
because they don't
no,
need to.
it doesn't. Yeah, and that's why we don't really do much bluegrass, because spring through fall in our part of the country, you can't throw a rock without hitting a fiddler's convention or a bluegrass
Right,
festival.
so you can't.
So we tend to book the kinds of acts that would have no place to play if it worked for us, like Celtic music or singer-songwriters.
Right.
We'll do a bluegrass or old time act, just because we feel like it's part of what we should be doing as a folk music presenter, to present that kind of thing, and also to try to bring in that audience some, hoping they then might come to some of our other types of shows. If they just appreciate good music in general, then we can kind of connect with them somehow.
What's the age of your audience? And I guess I'm interested in this question of whether the
It's
audience
older,
is aging.
probably like most other places. I'd say probably 30 to 70.
Yeah.
Very few college kids come.
Yeah.
Our current venue is very close to Wake Forest University campus, but that's just not where their heads are musically.
Right.
So we don't get too many young people. We will get kids, that come with their parents.
Right.
But not college age. We just don't reach those people. I think the music that people that age group listen to is what is out there all the time, and it takes no effort to find it. Whereas our the folk audience is kind of more used to having to seek out what they want.
Is your audience kind of the same group of people no matter what you present? Is it an audience that goes out for an evening of fiddle and bow folk music and doesn't much care if it's Celtic or bluegrass?
There are a few of those. Yeah.
Okay.
Not enough,
Oh,
unfortunately. But I wish that one core was bigger. But there's that. There are people that come almost every time we open the door. A few. And then there are people that maintain their membership year after year. We never see them. You know, there's all different levels. There are people who come to one show a year. There's one artist that we present they like. They'll come to see Garnet Rogers every time he plays in town. They won't come to anything else. You know, it's you know, it's a real frustrating thing. You know, trying to present folk music because you know you're not. There's never a sure thing.
Yeah.
You know, and an artist that packs the house one trip, you might get 25 people the next, and you just die trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
And then two, in my part of the country and in our town, folk music is not taken at all seriously by the local media. The music writer for the local daily is a rock and roller. He thinks he knows everything. He thinks he knows all genres. And he has very little respect for folk music, and so we get absolutely no help from the local daily. You know.
How old is he?
Oh, he's about my age, probably.
Okay.
I'd say he's in his 40s, but he's grown up. You know, he's played in bands, he's played rock and roll, and there's a really good rock and roll club there that does alternative rock stuff, and they'll get a couple of articles. You know, Friday's the entertainment section. They'll get a front page entertainment section story on the band playing at Ziggy's that night, and then over at the club's listing where we are in our, you know, where we're ghettoized, then there'll be a photo of the band playing at Ziggy's Monday. You know, I sometimes wonder if he's on their payroll, and we think it's very unfair, you know, because the artists we present, if they play in other towns, it's considered an event sometimes.
Right.
You know, and the major papers will do preview articles and stuff, and we're lucky if we get a photo in there 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
You know, so that doesn't help.
And no radio.
Well, the show I did for 16 years was probably helpful.
Now, was that on a station out of Winston-Salem?
NPR, yeah,
Okay,
the local
it's the NPR
Wake Forest
station.
University station.
Okay.
Did a folk music show, so that gave me the chance to, you know, promote our concerts. But we were forever bumped around in the Saturday night schedule, and finally, you know, the straw that broke the camel's back was that they were going to stick the show at 10 o'clock at night, following 2 shows that were reruns from earlier in the day, and I thought that was just sort of the ultimate indignity, and I just said, kind of, screw you, I'm just not going to. And they were lying about why they were doing it. One person was telling me one thing, and I said, I just can't work for you people anymore, forget it, you know.
How tenuous is the grip of Fiddle and Bow? Like, if you were plowed over by a truck on your return, would it continue?
Probably, but it would be in trouble because I'm the fanatic of the group, you know, the one that really stays on top of it and comes to these conferences and reads all the magazines and, you know, follows it religiously. But the booking would really be the thing that would be in trouble, because the other people just kind of, they trust me.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of go along and they enjoy it, but they don't really. You know, they've never dealt with agents and things. I'd say, you know, and I don't mean to be doing this to blow my own horn, but I think it would really be in trouble because the fanatic would be gone.
Yeah. I take it you've got
very important people.
3 officers, yeah.
But their role is more, we've got a wonderful volunteer coordinator. She's just incredible, reliable person. She'll have those volunteers there every time. We couldn't do without her.
Right.
But then she couldn't. That's her thing. She does that as well as it can be done, but that's kind of, you know, peripheral to what the other things, you know, like booking the shows and dealing with the agents and artists and all that.
And do you draw a stipend, or are you strictly volunteer as well?
We're all volunteer.
All volunteer organizations.
Right. So, but it's just, you know, right now we're kind of in a dip. You know, I think our frequent venue changes over the last 4 or 5 years have heard the loss of the radio show. Probably has had an impact on it, but I don't know. I tend to think we'll survive, you know, as long as we can just be careful. We're going to have to be more careful. We're pretty generous, you know, as in our part of the country. You know, I'm very much an advocate for the artist, because I know how hard a living it is to get out there and play folk music professionally. So over the years, we've often paid more than we had to by contract, because we'll have a good night in our euphoria. You know, we'll round that fee off to the next $100 or whatever, and you know, we'll you know, we just really try to do our best by the artist. You know, we put them up, you know, when they're there in our homes or whatever, and which has been a wonderful thing. I mean, it's just an incredible experience over the years having some of our musical heroes stay at my house. And I'll never forget when Martin Carthy came through for the first time, and luckily he had several days between his next gig, so he was at my house for 4 or 5 days, and I just, for months after that, I'd be standing there, Jesus, that was Martin Carthy who was here and doing the dishes and stuff like that. So it's been an incredible experience, you know, just for somebody who loves the music as much as I did as just a fan for so long, to actually be involved in putting on concerts and meeting the musicians. And I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm selfish in doing it, you know, through the organization, but you know, luckily over the years enough people have appreciated it that we kept going, and it's just a wonderful experience when somebody comes up to you after a show and they've never seen that person before and say, wow, were they great, you know, how did you hear about this person and all that. That's what keeps.
What's the size of your audiences? I take it we're talking in the 75 to 100 range?
If we're lucky, you know, it ranges anywhere from 20 to sometimes for a bigger show we might get a couple 300 in.
Okay.
You know, if it's Garnet or somebody
Right.
like that draws real well. But good average for us would be 40 or 50.
Okay.
But it often dips below. It doesn't as often go by.
I see. Okay.
You know,
Catching you cold with this one, but what would you like to see the Folk Alliance be able to do or become, or and I don't know that if you don't have a ready-made answer, that's okay.
well, I thought in the early days that what was needed maybe was a mechanism by which to try to create more venues. I know in the Southeast particularly, there just aren't that many. I mean, you go to New England and they're just all over the place. I mean, you get those calendars up there, and every little town's got a coffee house or something going on. In the Southeast, they're kind of few and far between. I mean, even good-sized cities. I mean, Winston-Salem's like 175,000. It's a pretty good-sized town. But there are other places where I feel like there's the potential, but and maybe there are people there that might do something if they could get a little help in establishing a venue or something like that. It would be good for the artist, you know. They could, you know, they would have more work, and it would be good for the presenters. And if they had more work, you know, we could all kind of slightly be more careful on the fees, things like that, protect ourselves better. You know, they're kind of all balance out, I guess. You know, they might make less per booking, but have more bookings or whatever. That increases their CD sales more often they play. So that, but beyond that, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's nice having the Folk Alliance around. It's nice that people care enough about music to stay involved and come to these things. And maybe one other thing, I think still. One thing that frustrates me is that, and I don't know if the Folk Alliance can do anything about this, but you see in, you know, trade magazines, you know, places they'll put out, you know, the top 10 albums. You know, there's never a folk music category there.
Yeah.
You know, there's adult, there's alternative, there's, you know, all these different jazz, all these different categories of types of albums, and you never see a folk, or at least I don't.
Right.
If you never see a folk category. And I don't know that there's anything that the Folk Alliance can do about that except as advocate for, you know, through the music industry to put folk music on the map. But it might be just the way the music is. You know,
well, that's the thing to do. I mean, that's a real, tangible thing to do if they can do it. And certainly they could reach out into Billboard.
Yeah.
You know, various other.
I guess it would be coordinating with, say, major record chains or whatever to let you know, like what folk album is selling the best for you. Or, of course, it'd be or coordinating through public radio, which is really where the only place you're going to hear much folk music. You know, like have the, and I think this is done maybe just kind of informally to report to, you know, what's played. I've seen some lists. Is it Gavin or something like that?
Yeah, well,
some of
there's
those.
there's certainly the Americana charts now, which they're
Those.
trying to
Well,
push.
it's a little
yeah.
better, yeah, at least.
And there are blues charts and there are bluegrass charts. So of course, then you're going to run into the problem of,
Yeah.
well, what's your definition? What do I got to
Right.
put into this
Yeah, yeah,
omnibus
right.
Folk category? We got a blues chart,
Yeah,
we got a
exactly.
bluegrass chart.
Mhm.
There's the new Americana charts, which we'll put in our magazine. I know
Mhm.
Billboard does the Americana chart, I believe.
Well, if you're dealing with the record store chains, I mean, if you say, well, report to us your best-selling folk albums, God knows what they're going to report.
Absolutely.
They may have Joan Osborne on there as a folk artist or something,
Yeah.
and maybe she is. I don't know.
Well, absolutely. But
So what do you do?
I guarantee you they would not include blues. They would not probably include Zydeco, which has it. So sometimes
Probably
it has
not.
it.
They wouldn't see that as a type of folk music.
No.
Yeah, well, I guess kind of a reflection of how you deal with definitions is when Fiddle and Bow started, we called ourselves the Triad, which is Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point, 3 cities close together, Traditional Music Society.
Right.
And then very quickly we realized, well, we're not a traditional music society. We do present some traditional music. And then we started thinking, well, how many people even will know what you mean when you say traditional music? So we changed it to folk music, figuring that even though a lot of people wouldn't really have a really good grasp of what folk music is in the 90s or at that time in the 80s, at least it means a little bit more to them than traditional music.
Absolutely. There's a little bit of a sensibility there they can grab onto.
So it was partly public perception of the two words, and then partly kind of reassessing what we were doing. And by that time we were doing so many singer-songwriters and stuff that we were no longer. And when we first started out, we probably did more traditional music. We did a lot of Irish traditional music and some string band music from around that area. Tommy Gerald, we did a couple of shows with him. We did a special concert honoring him when he was awarded the National Heritage Artist thing. Wonderful guy, too.
And did that draw? Did people come
That
to
one
see Tommy
did.
Gerald?
The thing we did honor him because we had a great tie-in publicity-wise, and I think Alice Gerard came, and Tommy kind of needed somebody with him. I think he was in his 80s at the time, and he was an incredible fiddle player. He usually needed somebody with him that could kind of explain what he did.
Yeah.
Because he was not used to explaining it, he just did it.
Right.
So he would need somebody with him to kind of, make the show
Yeah,
a
sure.
little more interesting, for just a casual audience. Now the old hardcore, old-time players, it didn't matter to them if Tommy opened his mouth, but for just our general audience, we kind of felt like we needed somebody there to explain why Tommy was such a significant old-time fiddler.
And it's hard to see a fiddle show if you're not a fiddler and you're
Yeah.
sitting in a seat.
That's right. And same with guitar.
Yeah.
We've never had a lot of luck with acoustic guitarists that don't sing.
Yeah.
Because 2 sets of just solo guitar instrumental music is as much as I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Since I play some, but for other people, it's about all they really know.
Yeah.
A little of that can go a long way.
Right. I'm kind of done, I think.
Yeah, sure. I need to get back over there.